Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us for the Superintendent's Report. I'm Carol Birdsong, and joining me today for the conversation is Superintendent Jason Golden. And this will be our last Superintendent Report for the 22-23 school year because the school year is pretty much over.
It is June. Our school year ends in May. Our fiscal year ends in June. It is actually summertime for most of our students as we speak.
It is. Our school buildings are still active as they always are. I don't think do we ever really stop? I don't think so. That I say this, I think every time we get into summer, but you know, those you used to see like the old sweatshirts or T-shirts that people would wear. That said my favorite months of the year are June, July, and August, right? Because there's no school. That just is not the case anymore.
That is not the case anymore. The state has had us working on a summer school program specifically for third graders, really. But we're actually doing it for rising kindergartners through rising ninth. We have about 1,200 students in our summer program. That's just in the middle school and elementary school. We always have some high school students taking credit recovery courses, doing a lot of things on the school campus. But this year, more than any other, because we have about 1,200 students on our campuses, it is a little busier. Now, we have 42,000 students, so 1,200 students taking the summer program from a statistical perspective is different, but there's a lot of activity on many of our campuses.
Lots of camps going on, lots of extracurricular activities that continue to go on in the summertime. As we record this, we had our June board meeting last night, and first off, I need to say congratulations, because you got an extension of your contract. So we were excited about that, and I'm sure that you are excited and appreciative.
Well, when you said congratulations, I first thought about congratulations for our strategic plan. That's really
we will talk about that in a minute. Let's talk about your contract extension first.
Well, so state law requires actually that a superintendent's contract be the first item on the agenda. So we're walking through this discussion. It really is the first item on the agenda because it has to be under state law. There's a lot of reasons for that, and so I'm excited. State law also talks about there being a maximum 4 years on a superintendent's contract. And so every year historically, our school board has looked at the contract after the evaluation time. And they unanimously approved an extension of my contract from 3 years to 4 years, and so I very much appreciate it. We really have a great team. The effort that we go through, this is hard work, and it takes a lot of really good people, and that's what we have. And so I'm very proud to lead that effort. I am so impressed with our school board, the communication that we have had this year, the communication with each other, the communication with our stakeholders, communication with our students has really been extraordinary this year. So I'm very proud of where we are. I mentioned to the board last night, I'm already in my 5th year as superintendent.
That just doesn't seem possible.
You know, and there's a truism about human existence, right? When you look back, it's just amazing how fast it goes, and that's what we're experiencing right now. We have a lot of good work to do, and we'll be talking about that in just a moment.
That's right. That's right. Well, and you did. I always get to share the student spotlights and the staff spotlights and celebrate the achievements of our students and our staff. But you also mentioned a few things. We've hit some records this past school year. So let's just take just a few minutes to reflect on the past school year and the successes that we've experienced.
So I'll give you a couple of examples. We had 78 National Merit Scholars this year. We had 61 students get a perfect 36 composite score in the ACT. Both of those were substantial records for us. We had $106 million in scholarships accepted by our students, and that number continues to grow.
I was going to say, I think that number's already up there. Yeah.
So one of the items I mentioned related to that, and I think our students maybe they topped off last year's record by somewhere around $3 million total dollars in scholarship money. Just last week, Mars Pet Care had a Juneteenth celebration, and they awarded 3 $10,000 scholarships to our students. Students who had already graduated, were preparing for college, and now they're going to get that extra substantial gift from Mars Pet Care as a result of some Juneteenth efforts that the corporation went through. That's just one example of so many great supports we have in our community.
That was a neat event, and we appreciate we appreciate Mars for partnering with us and for supporting our students. We had, I believe there were 2 students from Centennial that received, and then 1 student from Page High School in Williams County, so that was great. Yes, lots to be to celebrate and be thankful for as we wrap up this school year and prepare for the next one, because we really are already preparing for next school year.
And just a couple of weeks ago, the TSSAA state championships finished out, and you announced so many of our state champions in middle school and high school. Track athletes, some of the spring sports were finishing up. Many of those students actually compete even after school finishes.
Yes.
And so we're so proud of them. You know, our vision statement describes us providing a supportive environment that challenges students to excel in academics, athletics, and the arts. And we celebrate those state and national successes regularly. So we had a good meeting last night.
We did. One more that I want to share is Independence High student Nate Martinez, who was named a U.S. Presidential Scholar. There are only 2 selected from each state each year, and so that is quite an honor for Nate.
That's exciting. That's one of those things that his family will remember.
Oh yes.
You know, as long as they live.
And will open doors for sure. Okay. Well, let's get into the meat and taters of the meeting last night. So let's start with the strategic plan, because that work has been ongoing. It seems like for months and months, and well, I guess it has been for months and months. And the board approved our strategic plan. Walk us back, if you will, when we started the process, how the process went, and then the end result.
Well, our most recent strategic plan was actually structured a few years ago as a 7-year strategic plan. And about a year ago or so, about 5 years into our plan, we did an evaluation, and I let the board know I thought it was time for us to start working on a new strategic plan earlier than our current plan expected. So we were at the 5-year mark. It became pretty apparent to me that at the 6-year mark, it was time for us to have a new plan rather than that 7 years that the original plan addressed, in part because we had done so well in meeting our goals in that 7-year plan. So many of our goals we'd already met. We had some stretch goals mixed in there where we had made some progress, but it was time. So over the course of this past year, we had a number of stakeholder engagement meetings. And when I say a number, it was in double digits.
It was.
I frankly have lost track. We had
18 plus, I think.
something like that. And the stakeholders, it really did include our stakeholders. It included our students. It included our faculty and staff. It included business leaders. It included parents. It was a broad scope.
Students.
Students, right. And I actually started that with students because that was one of the most engaging conversations I had with our students.
Yes.
A really good mix of students sharing our successes and our opportunities for growth. So we really emphasized stakeholder engagement through this process. A number of parent meetings, a number of community meetings scattered across the county as we prepared for this strategic plan. So with the help of Lipscomb University, they were our facilitators, we went through that process and coalesced that feedback into some goals, into some objectives. And we really broke it into 3 main focus areas that our stakeholders created for us. Number 1, preparing students for life after Williamson County Schools, for life after WCS. And when I think everyone recognizes that you're really preparing students for the future. Parents are preparing their children for the future, and so that's our number 1 main focus area. And we have some goals and objectives related to that. We talked about improving our team quality, our faculty and staff. There are many challenges in our environment right now nationwide. There are fewer teachers finishing the teacher preparation programs at the universities than there are jobs. There are also a number of folks retiring. There's a disproportionate amount of retirements across the nation compared to those teachers coming out of the prep programs as well. So working on that. I will say also locally, Middle Tennessee is growing. We are growing, and so that's an exacerbation of that shortage of teachers, that we have to be very thoughtful. We have to have very specific plans about how to recruit, especially our teachers in hard-to-fill areas, because Middle Tennessee is where people want to be.
That's right.
Williamson County is where people want to be, and so we have to have a broader recruiting method. for our faculty and staff. And the third focus point is learning environment for our students. A part of what we learned really not just during our engagement time this year, but in my tenure as superintendent, is we can learn a lot from our students. You know, on paper, students are learning from our teachers, but we can learn a lot from them as well. So we have some very specific objectives to improve that learning environment for students, from academics to supports to improving relationships, reducing bullying issues, and providing the scope of extracurricular activities that really helps our students become complete people as they work towards that next step after high school.
Okay, so we will get that up on our website by the end of this week for sure, and so that everybody can take a look. And then internally, we have some work to do to put together our action steps, or whatever you want to call those, for the next layer of work for us.
Well, one of our board members mentioned last night we need to shout this from the rooftops. And so I really encourage anyone who's watching this, pull up that strategic plan, look at those objectives, think about something where you might be able to help us. So we are going to shout that from the rooftops. Second, we do take the next step of creating action steps, some measurables related to the specific objectives and goals. Some of it's going to be a money issue, some of it's effort issue, some of it's a combination, some of it will require us to engage stakeholders in those processes as we work towards improving everything we do for our students, everything we do for our faculty and staff. So I look forward to spending some more time with our stakeholders. It's not just going to end with our stakeholders sharing their values and where they want to see us in the next 5 years, but it will include many of our stakeholders helping us grow with that goal towards where we're going to be in 5 years.
That's right. And one of those goals for my department is community engagement, and we want to continue to work to make sure our community knows what is going on in our district, and we want community members to be involved as well. Everybody has gifts and talents that they can share, and so we want to be able to utilize those.
Well, you know, we have a long-standing reputation of being the among the top, if not the top, school system in the state. And many people come here because of Williamson County Schools. We have such a great relationship with the Chamber of Commerce because they know that that's a factor in corporate leaders coming to Williamson County. And so we know that our community members value us, and we want to make sure that they help us grow, recognizing what our community needs.
Sounds great. Okay, well, look forward to that and working on that as well. In other action in the evening, the board took action on some challenged books. So there were two different sections, if you will, that the board voted on. Share with us the action the board took.
So what you're talking about is we actually had a challenge to a number of library books, a request for reconsideration, and actually two separate requests for reconsideration that actually happened to come at the same time from a scheduling standpoint. So when I think about requests to remove library books from our library, my first thought is we reflect the United States of America. We reflect the nation. There's a lot of discussion publicly across the nation about content, in curriculum content in library books. And there's really nothing new under the sun. Many of these discussions were being had even in the late 60s, early 70s, and a lot of the standards for how we approach things were developed during that window of time, during the Vietnam era, during the Civil Rights Movement that so many of us lived through and others know as recent history. So we have a process in place when someone wants us to remove a library book. And it can be a very divisive issue because it really matters. It's really a question of balancing that First Amendment and all our rights with the need to give appropriate access and appropriate instructions to children. So we have a committee set up that reviews that. Just recently, Tennessee law changed in that the committees have traditionally made a decision that could be appealed to the board. Now the board actually has to be the decision maker. So it shifts from from a decision that can be appealed to a recommendation to the board. So the board had to make a decision on 5 particular library books last night. Now, they didn't just make the decision because something dropped in their lap a couple of days ago.
No, a lot of work went into this.
This discussion has been going on specifically related to these particular books over the course of many months. The committee reviewed it, the board was aware of that. The board had months and months of opportunity to read. In the meantime, as a result of the state law, there was an expectation that the Tennessee Textbook Commission would actually give some guidance related to evaluating the new Tennessee law. That guidance actually, when it came out just a month or so ago, paralleled our already existing policy that was developed in response to this law. So there were a lot of variables over the course of those months. But the good thing about that was that we had time, our board members had time to consider it. Ultimately, there was a lot of discussion about where we go from here. And for these particular books, the decision was that each of them should stay in the library. Now, a real key to this is it is important for parents to recognize that these discussions are going on. It is important for parents to be engaged in their children's education. If anyone out here listening has any concerns at all about what their children have access to, they need to know that they have the power to make those decisions for their child. So we strongly encourage you as a parent to be engaged in what your child is studying, what your child is reading. For many, many years, we have had a structure where a parent can opt a child out of a particular lesson, where a parent can ask a librarian not to have their child check out a particular book. That's been true for years. It's just becoming a little bit more well-known now because of the national discussion and because what's happening locally in the state. So we're actually going to increase the methods by which we communicate with parents about that. We had a change in our board policy just a couple of months ago. When there is a challenge to a textbook, when there is a challenge to a library book, we will notify the parents in that grade band of the decision of the board. So that will be coming out. Of course, we're sitting here in June, school's not in session, but that notice to parents will be coming out. We're going to have an ongoing list on our website of those challenged books, really to inform parents just a little bit more about that. Every parent is the decision maker for their child, and we want to maintain that partnership, for lack of a better term, with parents, to support what you're doing while still operating within the parameters that the federal government gives us and that the state government gives us in how we educate your child to the best of our ability.
Okay, so we'll be working through that from a communication standpoint. The way I read the policy, I believe, is that we will send a written communication for us, and it comes from the district level, so you'll get that through our notification system if you are a parent in that grade band.
That's right, Carol, but the key is stay engaged with your children's learning. Communicate with your principals. No matter where you fall on the scope of any of these questions, your engagement with your principal, with your children's teachers, with your child about what they're learning is really going to be important. We don't operate in a vacuum. We work with parents in growing their children.
And we know it's so important for parents to be involved in their child's education. Even though your middle school student is saying, don't come to school, you embarrass me, we encourage you to get involved in your child's education, whether it's through extracurricular or the classroom. We always need volunteers, and so that's just a good way for you to be up in the school and get to know everyone.
We know the practical reality is somewhere around middle school, maybe your children might be telling you that.
That happened to me, so I'll just share that. All right, we'll be communicating that, like we said. As we end this school year and look forward to the next one, we are still in the final stages of the budget, and the school board's approved our budget. Now it's in the hands of the county commission. Would you update us on that?
Sure. So in Tennessee, we have what I think of as a bifurcated system for school leadership. Our school board makes decisions on the expense side of the budget, but the county commission ultimately makes decisions on the funding side of our budget. So our board puts together a budget, and then we take it to the county commission for them to make decisions on whether they have the capacity to fund it. There is some state funding involved. We get a little bit of federal funding. Usually between 1% and 2% of our total budget is federal. So the lion's share of our budget is from county revenue, property tax, sales tax. About a third or so comes from the state. So largely, our county has supported education. One of the reasons we have that success that we've talked about is because our county leadership values education and has stepped up. Now, so from a procedural standpoint, we bring our annual budget to the county commission. We have a lot of discussions with county leaders. We have county government departments, and then we have the school. Two separate entities who actually are ultimately working in large part through the same funding source. So the county commission makes decisions in June on a budget for next year, and that, as we sit here today, is scheduled for next week.
Okay.
We have had many budget discussions. Again, we don't operate in a vacuum. We have had multiple discussions with the education committee from county government, with a budget committee, with joint committees, as they go through the process of approving that. From the county side, I'm speaking for them a little bit. They do not propose any change in the tax rate. So what we've experienced is the growth that we've had and the extra help from the state that we're getting, just a few more $1 million than last year, has made it to where our budget will balance. County government's going to vote on that budget. We included a 6% raise for our staff. The year before, we had actually done some flat increases, especially to our lower paid jobs, to compete with inflation and the market. This year, we propose a 6% pay increase. After all the meetings we've had, I'm confident. We always talk about not being 100% until the vote has happened, but we've had so many good meetings with the county commission, and knowing that it's not going to increase the tax rate, I feel pretty good about where we are with the budget. We'll know for sure in a week.
Okay, sounds good. We don't have any meetings in the month of July, so we won't have a superintendent's report to report on the actual school board meeting. Our next superintendent report will be a back to school edition, and it won't be that far away.
So our board meets 10 months a year. County Commission actually does something similar on a little bit different schedule. It is July. A lot is going on, but we are not scheduled to have any public meetings in July. Parents and children are off, and we want to honor that and look forward to all the work we're doing to prepare for next fall.
Okay, and we are doing that. So our next issue of In Focus, our email newsletter, will not be published until Tuesday, July the 11th. If you have not signed up to receive the In Focus email newsletter, we encourage you to do so. You can just do that right from our website. And we want you to stay informed. That is the best avenue for receiving school district information. And then shortly after that July 11th issue will be our big back to school issue. And so it's going to be here before we know it. So that's it, unless you have any final words as we close out one school year and prepare for the other. Superintendent Golden.
Thanks for watching. Thanks for being engaged with Williamson County Schools.
Thank you for joining us. We'll see you in July.